Cat equals sophistication minus civilization. By Katydid. Read by My Lost and Found. Summary. When Izuku gets hit by a quirk transforming people into cats, it accidentally latches on to one of the vestiges inside of him. The next thing Izuku knows, he's holding a white kitten with green eyes, and the first user's voice has vanished from his mind. The cat gets along great with Inko, All Might, Aizawa, and the rest of Class 1A, but keeps hissing and scratching his father. Hisashi / All for One would like to know why this cat's stare of disdain looks exactly like his younger brother's. This fic is 4,000 words and 1 chapter. And, as always, the link to the fic is in the description below, and on with the story. It all happened in a flash. 1 second, Midoriya Izuku walked down the street, holding a bag of groceries. His mother had asked him to pick them up on his way home from UA. According to her, they were having hot pot to celebrate some surprise she'd yet to reveal. The next second, a burly man grabbed him from behind and lifted him up in the air. A gruff voice shouted, "If you value this child's safety, stop!" Ryukyu screeched to a halt. Her wings spread out behind her dragon form. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Izuku couldn't help but fanboy about being so close to one of the top 10 heroes and speculate about what materials allowed her costume to change sizes with her. The Dragoon hero raises her hands. Jewelry robbery isn't nearly as serious a crime as harming a child. Please surrender peacefully. Her worried eyes meet Izuku's. At UA Academy, Izuku has received training for dangerous situations. He wasn't the type to panic. Instead, he carefully waited for the right moment to summon One for All. But the villain panicked first. Someone in the crowd took a photo with flash. The man holding Izuku screamed, his hand glowing white as he activated his quirk. A voice sounding like the first One for All user shouted, "Ninth, look out!" For a brief moment, Izuku glimpses a thin, young man with shoulder-length white hair standing in front of him. Then the light consumed his vision. When he opened his eyes, Ryukyu had knocked the villain to the sidewalk. She held Izuku protectively in her claws, and Izuku held a white kitten with green eyes. Izuku blinked. The kitten blinked back, seeming equally surprised. Those eyes were the exact same color as the first's. Afterward, Ryukyu told him that she'd been chasing a villain who had the power to transform people into cats. She asked Izuku if he had any idea why the quirk hadn't affected him, or where the cat had come from. Of course, Izuku played dumb. He insisted the villain had released his collar right before activating his quirk. The kitten had leapt down from a tree along the sidewalk. He couldn't let the existence of One for All be revealed. Ryukyu seemed to believe him. Izuku made a quick stop to replace his fallen groceries. He needed to put his mother in a good mood if he was going to persuade her to let him adopt a pet. Fortunately, according to Ryukyu, the quirk wore off after a few days. In the meantime, Izuku couldn't let poor First be abandoned on the streets or dragged off by people who would treat him like an animal, especially not when clearly the First had blocked the quirk to protect him. As he walked towards his home, Izuku asked the kitten, "What happened, anyway?" The First shrugged, suggesting he wasn't certain. "According to Ryukyu, the villain had to touch someone to turn them into a cat. Technically, since the vestiges are inside me, does that mean he could have gotten any of you?" For a moment, the First hesitantly nodded. "I know you tried to block the blow for me. Thank you." The First nuzzled his hand. Maybe this was a rude thing to say about a venerable predecessor, but he looked absolutely adorable. Those big eyes, tiny paws, and soft white fur made Izuku's fingers itch. "Would it be rude to pet you? Sorry, maybe that question is rude." The First made a little mewing sound that Izuku took as affirmative. He stroked the cat's chin. The First purred. It was a delightful sound, specially evolved to release dopamine into the human brain. Izuku decided it would be quite nice to have a cat around. As Izuku pushed open the door, he called, "Sorry I'm late, Mom. I dropped the first bag of groceries." He hesitated to tell the full story to his mother. since he knew she would worry about his hero work.
I have a surprise for you.
From the kitchen, Inko called. I have a surprise too. You'll be so delighted. Go straight to the living room, dear.
Sure,
Izuku said, curious. Holding his cat, he walked down the hallway. From the living room, the television played. A newscaster said, Disturbed by reports that the villain All For One has escaped from Tartarus after stealing regeneration quirk. Izuku froze. His heart hammered. He was about to call All Might when something completely distracted him from the stunning news. His father, Hisashi Midoriya, sat on the couch, holding a coffee mug. He turned around, revealing curly white hair, freckles, and a big smile.
I'm so glad to see you, Izuku.
Dad! Izuku cried. He hadn't seen his father face to face in so long. Joy filled his heart. Setting the first down, he ran over to hug him. Hisashi swept him into his arms.
I've been transferred back to Japan permanently. I'm home for good. That's so wonderful.
Izuku squeezed harder. A low hiss came from the first. The cat's fur had completely puffed up, and his tail stood raised angrily, his eyes fixed on Hisashi, as if spoiling for a fight. Izuku laughed nervously.
I found this kitten. I'm hoping to persuade Mom to let me keep him. It's sort of important for complicated reasons. Normally he's much tamer than this.
Leaning over, Izuku picked up the first and whispered,
Stop that. We need my dad to like you.
The cat snorted, but stopped hissing. Hisashi stared.
That kitten has the most beautiful eyes.
His voice sounded distant, almost dazed. Since first screen eyes were the exact same shade as Izuku's, he thought it might sound narcissistic to agree. Maybe that's why his father liked them. This could be useful. He asked,
Will you help me persuade Mom?
Persuade me about what? Inko poked her head into the room. Izuku fastened his most charming smile on his face.
This poor abandoned kitten needs a home.
Really? Inko sounded neutral, not entirely opposed or convinced.
That hate-filled gaze is so familiar too.
Hisashi mumbled. The kitten sneered at him. Inko asked, Does he or she have a name?
His name is...
Izuku couldn't think of anything off the top of his head.
First.
Hisashi spewed coffee out of his nose.
Dad!
Izuku cried. His father seriously seemed to be choking. He ran to fetch a cup of water. The first made a discontented growl in his arms. Izuku glanced down.
I'm sorry if you don't like the name. I don't know your real one. Does it matter? It's not like you'll be here long, just until the quirk wears off.
The cat snorted at him. Strangely enough, his father turned out to be his firm ally on keeping the cat. Hisashi had never been an animal person, but he'd immediately gotten attached to this particular kitten, despite the clear hostility towards him. Under the face of both their enthusiasm, Inko gave in. Izuku lied that the kitten already had all necessary shots, since he didn't want to subject a human to the vet. Imagine if they tried to fix him. His father also insisted that Izuku stay at home instead of living at the dorms. Under other circumstances, Izuku might not have been willing, but at the moment, he didn't want to be separated from the first. Besides, it would be nice to spend more time with his newly reunited father. Somehow, Hisashi had procured the necessary paperwork to excuse him already, including a signature from the Prime Minister. His father always did have a lot of political connections. The next morning, Izuku went downstairs for breakfast. His father had backed the first into a corner. The kitten's tail had puffed up. He growled. As his father's hand reached forward, Izuku called,
Don't! He clearly doesn't want to be touched.
Hisashi turned around.
I'm trying to help him get used to me.
There was something false about his smile.
If you try to pet him while he's so angry, you'll get scratched.
Izuku didn't want trouble on the very first day. What if his mother changed her mind?
How long have you been pestering him like this?
The cat's tragic stare said,
Hours, days, weeks.
Hisashi said,
5 minutes. I've almost gotten him a couple of times.
His hand swooped down. The first yowled, and scratched his hand.
Dad, I told you to stop.
Izuku ran to the rescue, scooping up the first. The kitten immediately turned docile, rubbing his cheeks with soft paws. His father exhaled and put a hand over the showl cut. Izuku glared.
You'll get no sympathy from me. I told you not to bother him.
He kissed the first nose. The kitten mewed and snuggled him. Hisashi took advantage of this distraction to pet the white ears from behind. The first's eyes shot open. He tried to bite the hand, a little too late.
Knock it off, both of you.
Izuku sighed and went to pour cereal. He fetched a bowl for the first two, since he didn't have cat food and doubted a human would like the taste either. At the gates of UA, Izuku reached into his backpack for a comb. His hand touched soft fur. He opened his bag to see a white kitten blinking up at him.
Don't give me that innocent look. I'm not allowed to take animals to school.
The first made a truly heart-wrenching sound. Big green eyes widened pleadingly.
Why do you want to come with me so badly? Wait, are you trying to avoid my father?
The first nodded.
Can't you try to get along with Dad? Just for a short time?
The first fixed him with a look of disdain only a cat could manage.
What's your problem with him anyway?
Judging from the non-stop angry meows, the problems were numerous, extensive, and unsurmountable. Halfway through class, Izuku's mechanical pencil ran out of lead. He reached into his backpack for more. The first hissed in protest as he was jostled.
Sorry, please be quiet,
Izuku whispered. He glanced at the blackboard. Aizawa went rigid at the sound. His chalk stopped moving. He turned around. Dark eyes scanned the classroom. Izuku used refilling his mechanical pencil as an excuse to avoid that piercing gaze. With unnerving instinct, Aizawa marched over and opened the backpack.
Midoriya, what did you bring? Oh, what an angel.
The first peered up with sleepy eyes.
He's beautiful, Aizawa murmured. Can I pet him?
If he agrees, Izuku said, wary of what happened that morning and wondering why his teacher hadn't flipped out yet. With the grace of a king granting permission, the first nodded. Aizawa reached down and stroked the kitten's chin.
I've never seen such intelligence in a cat's eyes before. You have a rare treasure there, Midoriya.
Without further comment, the teacher returned to the blackboard. Izuku's heart finally resumed beating. Somehow, he'd gotten off the hook. Koji raised his hand. Can I bring my rabbit to class tomorrow?
No pets allowed in school,
Aizawa said. But Izuku brought his cat, and you didn't mind at all.
Cats go where they please. Midoriya can't be held responsible.
Toshinori sat in the teacher's lounge, grading papers, when a kitten sauntered through the cracked door and leapt into his lap.
Oh!
Toshinori looked down at the white bundle. The cat yawned and went to sleep.
There's a cat. Why? How? You're so lucky, All Might.
Aizawa sighed.
That kitten is a difficult one. He doesn't show affection easily. I wonder why he took to you immediately.
Plaintively, Toshinori asked.
But how did a cat get into UA? It's Midoriya's pet. You can ask him. He's so warm.
Toshinori froze in place. His big hands hovered in the air, as if afraid to touch the tiny, precious creature.
What do I do with him?
His gaze landed on Aizawa, pleading for help.
Nothing. Just relax and let him nap. You'll be stuck there for a while, though.
The cat purred in his sleep. Toshinori's face melted into a helpless expression of happiness. From the doorway, Izuku bit his nails and wondered if he should tell his mentor the truth or just let it be. At home, the first stuck to Izuku's side like a second shadow. It quickly became obvious that his cat was determined to avoid being alone with his father, who followed them both around everywhere. It got quite annoying real fast. As he tried to do his homework, Izuku called,
"Dad, do you need anything?" "It looks like your new cat is distracting you from your schoolwork,"
Hisashi said from the doorway.
"Why don't you just let me take him out of your room?"
The first hissed.
"It's fine. He's not bothering me."
Izuku reached down to stroke the kitten's ears.
"Maybe if you'd stop pestering him, he wouldn't be so hostile towards you." "Nonsense. I've done nothing wrong,"
Hisashi said. The first made a sound better suited to a tiger than a kitten. Izuku closed the door in his father's face and locked it. He looked over his shoulder at the first.
"Maybe if I let him pet you once, the challenge will stop being so irresistible?"
The first snorted.
"You act like you're afraid that if you're alone with him, you'll never be seen again."
The cat nodded frantically. Talk about melodramatic. Whatever the joke was, Izuku didn't get it. At dinner, the first leapt onto the table and seated himself before one of the plates. He certainly is a strange cat, isn't he? Inko sounded more amused than bothered. She let the first take over Hisashi's place and added a fourth plate to the table. Izuku was more than grateful for his mother's tolerance. He doubted the first would be willing to eat out of a cat bowl, and certain behaviors in past visions suggested he could go longer than healthy without eating food. The first took a bite of bulgogi, then meowed. Inko stared. I would swear he just thanked me for my cooking. She laughed as the first wiped his paws on a napkin. If I took a video and uploaded it, everyone would say it was doctored. The first tipped over a water glass to drink, each movement elegant. Inko watched in awe. She muttered, I suppose I'd better research safe foods for cats to eat. It had to be the power of cuteness. If another animal jumped on the table, his mother would simply shoo it off. But the first only had to turn those big green eyes on a human, and they melted. Hisashi walked into the dining room.
Sorry I'm late. It smells delicious. Hey, why is he in my spot?
The first glared. His lashing tail promised violence to any fool who attempted to remove him from Hisashi's usual seat. Tiny fangs flashed. A low growl emerged from his throat. Though no one present could speak cat, they could all read the message in his eyes. Your family belongs to me now. Challenge me and die. It's a shame the cat hasn't taken to your father, Inko said. Maybe we should try pet therapy. The pet therapist had met numerous strange clients over the course of her career. For example, the woman who was convinced her dog was the reincarnation of her dead husband, or the nutjob who thought his rabbit was trying to kill him. But she'd never seen a cat stare at her with such a human boredom. How did it even understand what she was saying enough to be tired of it? The contempt in that green gaze was entirely feline. Finishing her psychobabble, she got to the point. I recommend you force your cat to cuddle your husband several times a day until he gets used to it. Use of force is entirely acceptable. This was total nonsense, of course. No reputable pet therapist would advise such a thing. But Mr. Midoriya had offered her 1,000,000 yen in order to say it. That definitely made him one of her craziest clients yet. But she had student loan debts to pay off. Miss Midoriya looked doubtful. That sounds abusive.
It's expert advice, dear,
Mr. Midoriya said. Had the cat just rolled his eyes at her? Izuku hadn't been able to attend the pet therapy session due to school, but his mother had told him it'd been a total waste of time. She'd even muttered about the suggestion sounding suspiciously like animal abuse. She was looking into a different provider. In the meantime, his father and the cat had managed civility over the dining table, which was an improvement. Although Izuku found something odd about how intensely his father watched the first eat. His bad feeling intensified when he realized the first wasn't trailing after him as usual. He searched through the house until he found Hisashi sitting in an armchair with a kitten in his lap. His dad petted the white fur. The cat purred. Izuku stared.
What? How? Looks like he's finally warmed up to me,
Hisashi said with a bright grin. Izuku's suspicion intensified. He stalked over and took a closer look. The first had bugged-out eyes. He rocked back and forth, making bizarre yodeling sounds.
You drugged him with catnip! Izuku shrieked. That was why you acted so fishy over dinner. It must have been in the food. For shame, Dad.
Hisashi's eyes widened with innocence.
It was prescribed by the pet therapist. A completely legitimate technique.
Izuku snatched up the first.
This is completely unacceptable.
He took deep breaths, forcing himself to calm down. His father had no idea this cat was actually a human, because surely he would never drug a person without their consent. This was just a misunderstanding. Hisashi stretched up his arms.
Just let me have this for a little longer. Pretty, please. Look, you couldn't have known this, but the vet told me catnip is very bad for him. For reasons.
The extremely high feline kept rolling around in his arms, making a sound like a giggle. The first was furious after the mellowing effect wore off, and Izuku couldn't blame him. He resolved to try harder to keep the cat and his father apart. As soon as Izuku walked into Toshinori's office, he noticed his mentor's eyes darting around, looking for the kitten. Izuku said,
The first finally vanished this morning.
Toshinori nodded.
The quirk wore off. We knew it was coming soon.
After Izuku had told All Might everything, he'd researched the villain's quirk and gotten an approximation of the time limit.
I don't know what to tell my mom.
Izuku sighed.
She's gotten so attached. I'm almost as afraid of Aizawa's reaction.
The entire Class 1A had adopted the kitten as a mascot. All of them would shower him with questions when he showed up empty-handed. Toshinori suggested,
Why not say the kitten's original owner tracked him down?
That sounds happier than claiming he ran off. Izuku heard a meowing. He looked around.
What's that?
A sheepish smile crossed Toshinori's lips.
I got rather attached to having a kitten around, so...
He stepped aside to reveal a small white kitten with copper eyes nuzzling his ankle.
I adopted her from a shelter. I haven't picked out a name for her yet.
Aww! Izuku knelt down to pet the tiny cat.
You even found one that looks like him,
Izuku said knowingly. Toshinori coughed and flushed. Hisashi timed his attack for when his son and the other students would be holding a training exercise. A stealth ability let him slip into the teacher's lounge. As soon as he spotted a white kitten napping on All Might's chair, he swept her into the cat carrier. The movement as he retreated out the window woke the cat up. She hissed, displeased at having her nap disturbed.
I know you're angry at me, but you can't avoid me forever.
Hisashi stopped and settled the carrier down.
We need to talk.
The kitten inside stopped thrashing. Hisashi took this as a good sign.
The last time we fought, I didn't realize you'd lost one for all. That's why I was rougher than I should have been. It was an accident. This is hard for me to say.
Hisashi took a deep breath.
I'm extremely sorry about killing you.
The cat purred.
Does this mean that you forgive me?
Hisashi took the kitten out. The kitten crawled all over him, purring and rubbing against his cheeks. He beamed, petting the white fur.
I'm so happy. We can be a family again.
He met the cat's eyes. The cat's copper eyes.
You're not my brother.
Toshinori's new kitten kept purring, oblivious to the sudden shift in reception.
I just apologized to a real cat. Ugh!
Hisashi threw the kitten across the lawn. All Might's cat landed on her feet, hissing in shock at the human's sudden, cruel betrayal. She ran off, forever to hold a grudge against All for One equal to that of her master. Back in the void, Yoichi sprawled on a throne with his legs crossed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got out of there just in time. By the last day before the quirk wore off, I could barely avoid him. I'm so jealous. En groaned from his throne. You ought to be alive again. Sure, but as a cat. Yoichi shrugged. It had good parts, I suppose, but it wasn't worth dealing with my brother. I narrowly avoided the vault too, cat kennel.
I gotta say, man, I'm disappointed in you.
Nejiro Banjo called.
Screw running away. You should have tripped All for One down the stairs.
Yoichi snorted. Like that would have done anything to the indestructible bastard.
It would have been funny to watch,
Banjo said. Nana grumbled. I'd love a shot at killing All for One. I bet I could have given it a real go, cat or not. Everyone's a critic. Yoichi rolled his eyes. If Ninth gets hit by a quirk again, feel free to take my place next time, but I don't think that's very likely. At Tartarus, 2 guards stared at an enormous hole in the wall. The first guard said,
I don't get it. He just broke out of Tartarus. Why would he come back?
The second guard pointed at the broken cell with the dead prisoner inside.
Presumably to steal that guy's quirk?
A quirk that can turn people into cats? Why the hell does a supervillain want that? The guard shrugged.
This is so embarrassing for us. Does All for One think Tartarus is his own personal shopping mall?
Hisashi stood over his sleeping son, holding up a cat. An Egyptian, hairless cat, with small, beady eyes.
You're not my brother either!
Banjo's lips peeled back in a snarl.
Which one are you? Never mind. I don't care.
Hisashi raised his hand, summoning the quirk again.
You'd better come out this time, little brother, or I'm going to break your friend's neck.
White light shot forward to touch Izuku's sleeping body. As the light cleared, an elegant black cat appeared, perched on the headrest. Her dark eyes burned with hatred as she floated upwards. Hisashi's eyes widened.
Nana Shimura, you can still use your quirks?
In response, Blackwhip yanked his hands behind his back. Banjo twisted free, landing on the ground, and bit his ankle. Nana launched herself at his eyes. Omake time. Omake, a future conversation. First, I can't believe you gave my identity away to my brother within the first 5 minutes. What kind of pet name is first? Izuku.
Maybe you should have told me that my father was All for One, then?
First. Welp, I see mistakes were made on both sides here. Let's drop the subject. Izuku.
Let's not? I still want to know why you didn't tell me my father was All for One.
Omake. Double standards. Hisashi.
Why did you leap on that full All Might demanding cuddles, but I have to drug you before you'll let me do it?
First, you answered your own question with the drug me part. Hisashi.
I don't understand.
First, I know you don't, and that's kind of the whole problem. Omake. Nana was doing a great job of trying to kill All for One, but the unfortunately all parties concerned, the noise is about to wake Izuku up. Izuku.
Dad, what's going on? Where did those cats come from?
Hisashi, trying to peel Nana off his face and Banjo off his leg.
I have no idea. I came in here because I heard meowing sounds.
Izuku mumbles.
Who would have known the villain's quirk has a delayed effect? Fascinating.
Hisashi.
Haha, I can't believe I got away with that excuse. Ow! Get off!
Izuku.
You two, stop attacking my dad. I don't know why he's such a natural enemy for cats, but you're going to have to learn to get along, since we'll all be living together from now on.
Hisashi.
Since we're what?
Nana and Banjo yowl in an equally confused shock. Omake, pre-reveal. Izuku.
Why do all the vestiges hate my father? Am I missing something important?
All Mate's pet cat mauls Hisashi's leg. Izuku.
Nah, I guess Dad is just universally hated by cats. Time to go rescue him again.
And that's it with this fic. Okay, so normally, so I made cat noises for this fic. Normally, I don't do like when it says, oh, this person sighed here in the text, or like whatever sound is going on, but this fic is for Voice Team 2024, and it's for the mood challenge, and that challenge is basically, you gotta make some animal noises, like no like using like pre-recordings or like other things to make noises. You gotta do it from you. And this fic was like already in my list of fics that I wanted to podfic eventually. This is probably coming out like way after Voice Team 2024 is done, as will like a lot of the ones that I podficked during this event, because, you know, gotta stick with the schedule, but also it's a great opportunity to just pre-record a lot of them. But what was I talking about? Cat noises. Anyway, this fic is great. It's hilarious. Oh, seriously, the concept itself is just absolutely just hilarious. First, just cat. I honestly don't know how katydid comes up with so many amazing ideas. It's like magic. I wish I had that magic. Please give me your magic. But yeah, it's the perfect, like, cats, just spiteful creatures, and then first, just embodiment of spite being around all for one. This is great. Anyway, that's all for now. If you guys liked this fic, the link to the original is in the description. Go leave a kudos, go leave a comment, whatever you can. And that's all for now. I'll see you next time. Bye! First is such